All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? Have it like $1,000. Open it up.
What is property flipping? Welcome back. I'm Ted Thomas, and for the past 30 years, I've been involved with tax defaulted property, and I've also been involved in tax lien certificates. This is an offshoot or a subset of the traditional real estate business, and I'll tell you more about it over the next few minutes. Now, most of my viewers are interested in bargain real estate, and you'll see in the next few minutes, we're going to talk about tax defaulted property that's perfect for those of you that want to flip real estate, or if you're a fixer-upper person or a renovator. You'll like all of them, okay? For those of you that are trying to figure out how to find these property, I'm going to show you a solution over the next few minutes. Now, many of the property searches for property tax auctions can take place right at your local county records. Why is that? Because all 3,000 counties across the United States sell tax defaulted properties. They do it online, they do it offline, and the local newspaper. So I said all of the counties across the United States, and I'll explain that more in detail over the next few minutes. Now, many of the properties are sold for 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar with no mortgage and no deed of trust loan. That really can be bargain real estate. So in today's episodes, we're going to discuss what is property flipping. I'll be right back. If you're a television watcher, you'll likely come across those programs where people fix up properties. Now, some of them are professionals, some of them are amateurs, and some of them are just people purchasing not so hot properties and are mediocre properties, and they're hoping to finish the job of fixing them up. I didn't say that was cheap, and I didn't say that was a low-risk business, but lots of people are sure interested. So what do? They renovate the property. They work very hard knocking down walls. Sometimes they have 5 or 6 contractors there working at the same time. Well, folks, 29 minutes later, what do they have? Well, it looks like a mansion, and for sure, if it's priced halfway decently, they're going to be able to sell it quickly. All right, some of the people that do that are property flippers. Now, all the property flippers don't spend a lot of time fixing them up. Basically, they're buying properties below the market and trying to sell them as quickly as they can. So that means you're going to have to be relatively flexible. So I like to buy a tax defaulted auction where I can buy for pennies, 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar, mark it up and maybe sell it at 50 or 60 cents on the dollar. And there's lots of people that want to buy. And who are the buyers? They're going to be renovators, they're going to be people that want to do fixer-uppers, and they're going to be property flippers. So there's lots of opinions on property flipping. So a person buys a property and they're interested in buying and then quickly selling. Most of the market calls those people flippers, okay? Now, it could be a home, it could be an office building. There's a lot of people like to flip land. You could do it with small apartments. It's going to be up to you what you want to do it with. But the primary business is land and fixer-upper houses. That's what it is. So property tax auctions are the source of money for a lot of people because they can buy and then they can resell quickly, or they can buy and hold. It's up to them. So finding these properties is going to take a little time if you're a flipper. So more and more people are coming to my class because we teach the county records so that they can learn to go out and find these tax defaulted properties on their own. They can buy at auction. Once they learn how to do that, they're in another business and they have plenty of inventory. Now, guys and gals that like to do flippers and fixer-upper properties are not a minority of the people that are in the business. A lot of people want to do that business. The challenge always is, where are you going to find the properties? So if you're a newcomer and you're just learning the business, it's important to understand a little bit of the following information. It's important to understand that the marketing of the property is probably the biggest mistake people make. They know how to fix them up, they're learning how to buy them, but marketing is a big mistake. So that simple blunder makes the difference between a successful deal and a failure. So most people don't learn marketing. So you need to know who the buyer is. That's important. Unfortunately, most flippers and most people that do renovations are not very good at selling the property. All right, so how are you going to get that way? Well, you're going to have to become a lot more assertive. So here's a solution. To succeed at selling, you need to do many of the following things. So you can start out with a multiple listing service. Then you could advertise on eBay. You could use Craigslist. You could use Zillow. You could use Facebook Marketplace. You could use hundreds of electronic sites that are out there. Or you could do the traditional thing. You could put signs on the lawn, could signs in the neighborhood, but it would be much better if you did all of the things that I've just mentioned. And I haven't mentioned them all. How about using the newspaper? How about going to real estate clubs? There's a lot of eager buyers there. And my point is, selling the property is the place where people have the most trouble, okay? So you must know who your competition is, but selling, it requires that you do a lot of things. So you need to market the property and use media to sell the property. You need to expose it to the world, not just put a little sign on the front lawn. Now, if you'll use the media, which I've just suggested, you'll find out that a lot of buyers will approach you because they're using media sitting at their computer to find these properties. So if you do this right, I can tell you it will be smooth sailing. If you don't do it right, it's going to be a struggle from month to month to sell a property, and you'll only make a fraction of the money that you actually deserve. House flipping has many advantages. A lot of people claim they're making $40,000 or $50,000. We like to teach people, let's try to make $25,000 to $50,000 by purchasing the property at a tax auction and buy it low and then resell it low. All right. Another advantage that you have, if you're going to sell it quickly, is you don't have to stay there and do that maintenance. Now, I realize flipper people want to do some of that. I realize fixer-upper people, they specialize in that. The key to this business is marketing, is buy it right, buy it low, sell it low, and do a lot of marketing. All right. The properties that you're buying, good properties, yes, they're good property, but they're not pristine. All right. What do I say not pristine? They're used and abused. All right. Some of the properties are junkers at the tax auction, but some of them just need paint and cleanup. So you want to buy the properties that you don't have to spend too much time on. Don't buy the junk. You're not going to be able to sell them. All right. So what are the skills that the flipper needs? All right. You need, if you're going to be a flipper, you need selling skills. You need fixer-upper skills. And the big key is buying them. So what do we teach? We teach people learn how to buy at tax defaulted auction.
How better go there? How better go there? How better go where? How better go here? How better now? How better go?
They're in 3,000 counties across the United States. Another 1,400 municipalities all sell tax defaulted properties. All right. Now, if you don't understand the selling process, I can tell you, you're going to spin your wheels for a long time. You're going to have significant maintenance costs while you're maintaining it. And during that waiting period, you could have a lot more expenses. But if you learn how to do this, if you learn how to do it right, you're going to be able to make $20,000, $30,000, and $50,000 on tax defaulted property. This is a part-time work, but it's full-time money. You're trying to buy at tax auctions where you can get them for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar for your starting bid, and then you have plenty of room to be able to sell it later. All right, this doesn't mean that every property at the auction is going to be acceptable. It doesn't mean that this is going to be a piece of cake. There's going to be work to do, and you'll have to do the work. All right, so what happens if you find a major flaw in that property? Well, that's going to slow the whole process down. So you need to think about what you're going to do if that happens. You want to think about that during the buying process, not during the selling process. Now, if you understand financing, that's going to be another big plus because the banks are going to reject people that have credit problems. All right, so people with low FICO scores, well, I'm going to suggest right now that you use that as part of your marketing strategy because they've been turned down for the bank. So that means those people are going to be looking for deals at the auction. You'll want to give people a deal. And how can you give them a deal? Well, you could sell the property below the assessed value, and then you could provide financing. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. On the small population county, there's going to be dozens of properties that are coming up for auction. Sometimes there's hundreds of properties in the small population county. But the big population counties, for example, San Bernardino, Los Angeles County, things like that, they're going to have hundreds, even thousands of properties to sell at the tax defaulted property auction. So if you'd like to have a list of those properties, so you know when the properties are sold and how they're sold, when and where, well, you can go right below me and register for that sale. Now, if you're going to buy at tax defaulted auctions, I need to tell you up front, people make two mistakes. What's the two mistakes? Number one, biggest mistake is they buy property without looking at it. Folks, you don't want to buy a property you haven't looked at. What if there was a fire? What if there was a flood? What if there was a hurricane? What if it was next to a pig farm? You probably wouldn't want to buy that property. So always have boots on the ground. The second big mistake people make is they haven't looked at the property, so that means they probably haven't looked at the neighborhood. So how are you going to determine an exit strategy? Your exit strategy should be figured out before you buy the property. If you pay too much at the auction, you won't be able to sell it. So your exit strategy, you need to figure that out before you do anything else. I'm Ted Thomas. I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.